All right, guys, so Chevron is sending an oil tanker to Venezuela. Let's talk about it. So, we've had sanctions on Venezuela for, if I'm not mistaken, about 4 years now. No oil has been going to or from our countries. And now, all of a sudden, Chevron is sending an oil tanker down to Venezuela to pick up some crude and bring it back to the United States for refinery. What does that mean? What are the implications there? So, Saudi Arabia is now considering to accept yuan for their oil. And what does that have to do with Venezuela and the United States? Well, if right now Saudi Arabia only accepts the dollar for their oil. That's an agreement that we had with them several years ago. If they start to accept yuan now, that means that there's going to be more people who can buy oil from Saudi Arabia for Chinese yuan. That is going to increase the demand and value of the Chinese yuan and potentially decrease the demand and decrease the value of the United States dollar. And we have got to make sure that we do something to counter that, to counteract that. And one of the things that we can do is try to get Venezuela to accept our dollar for their oil. So if Venezuela starts selling oil to us for dollars, then that would continue to keep the demand for the dollar at its levels. The problem is Venezuela does business with our enemy, with Iran, and they have agreements with Iran to construct and to operate oil rigs off of their coastline. They've already signed that contract with Iran. If they break that contract, it's going to be a huge deal. And so, the United States buying oil from Venezuela is going to start funding the Iranian regime now. so if Venezuela starts selling their oil to us and we start allowing their oil to come into the United States again, the money will literally be going to Iran. Iran will be operating those oil rigs. That was the agreement that they made with Venezuela. Another security vulnerability that needs to be considered for that economic agreement, or regarding that economic agreement, is the fact that Iran has very effective kamikaze drones. They were so effective that when the Houthi rebels got a hold of them, it changed the trajectory of the war in Yemen. They're also so effective that when Russia started using them, Kiev started taking major losses in their armored vehicles and in their infrastructure. So those kamikaze drones that Iran produces and sells have an effective range of 2,500 kilometers. Now, off the coast of Venezuela, from the coast of Venezuela, it's not even 2,500 kilometers to New York City. So, draw a line straight from Venezuela to New York City and put an arc on it. That's how much the United States would be vulnerable to Iranian kamikaze drones if the Iranian regime, or when rather, not if, because they will be, but when the Iranian regime starts to operate those oil rigs off the coast. The United States is making some big mistakes in our foreign policy. Huge mistakes. And we're literally going to be giving money to one of our sworn enemies, Iran, through Venezuela. So the implications of Chevron sending an oil tanker yesterday to Venezuela to bring crude back for refinement. Huge implications there. Huge, very, very huge implications. Why would we be needing to buy oil from Venezuela? It's obviously so that our economy doesn't crash, right? That's in my opinion, that's the only strategic advantage we would have from buying oil from Venezuela is so that the demand for the dollar continues, so that the dollar continues to be valuable after Saudi Arabia starts to accept the yuan. So Venezuela would have a lot of leverage over us at that point, because if they decide that they don't want to accept the dollar anymore, then Saudi Arabia and Venezuela are not valuing the dollar as much. What do you think the investors in the treasury bonds are going to do? They're going to start dumping their treasury bonds. They're not going to be buying United States treasury bonds if the value of the dollar is nil. So there's a very serious potential that you could see hyperinflation in the United States. Now, if the border continues to get destabilized, and you've got these liberal mayors that are asking, already saying that they're going to ask for assistance from the UN, if that takes place, China's troops will be here on our soil. Chinese troops will be here on our soil, strategically placed right next to the oil and gas fields in Texas. Texas has the largest oil and gas fields in the United States, and China needs the energy for the grand solar minimum next solar cycle. They've got to secure some kind of natural resources to keep the lights on in their country during the next solar cycle. Otherwise, they're going to lose. They're going to lose power. Not just power as electricity power, but authority. Their authority will be challenged. They'll be overthrown. So they've got to get the energy from somewhere. And one of the things that nations do during economic during economic collapse is that they sell the rights to their resources, and sometimes, several times throughout history, they even sell land in order to continue funding the government security apparatus. They've got to get money from somewhere. If they can't tax their civilians for a valuable asset, tax dollars, then they've got to come up with another way to make money. And historically, the way that nations did that was by selling land. Napoleon sold us Louisiana to fund his wars, and 10 tribes sold us Indiana, for $20,000. So that being said, guys, it's an option for the government to do. They've done it in the past. Post-war, they typically ramp up a lot of their spending. They go into hyperinflation, and then post-war, they typically sell land, whether it be to their civilians who have money, to their citizens who have money, or to a foreign nation. Countries sell land to each other. That's just the way it works. I mean, we bought Alaska from Russia, So it is a real possibility that if the American economy collapses, that we could either sell rights to natural gas and oil, or we could sell land. And China really wants port access to California, and they also want the natural gas and oil that's in Texas. So be on the lookout for that. And obviously, World Economic Forum is trying to push their digital ID and trying to push their digital currency. So everything that happens this year, when you see something happening, you should be in the forefront of your mind. You should be thinking, how does this event help the World Economic Forum push their agenda? How does this event help them to get what they want? And that there will help you analyze the situation as far as I'm concerned properly, because the powers that be are the ones that are pulling the cords and the ones that are playing this charade on the world stage that you see right now. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and as always, don't forget, help out your neighbors. Bye.